Christ child,
Yeah.
ICXC.
Yeah.
You know.
Those are standard. You
That's,
gotta,
yeah, that's again going universal, like no matter what language the icon's gonna be in, you're always gonna have, for Jesus Christ, those abbreviations for the Virgin Mary.
I was going to ask a question, and I think I figured out the answer. Cyril and Methodius came up with the Cyrillic alphabet, which is used in the Russian Orthodox Church, right?
right. And that was based, they were two Greek monks that had gone to convert the Rus, which were the original Russians. They had no language. They had an oral language, but not a written language. And in order to get the word out, they had to develop some sort of a writing skill. The only words they knew, or language they knew, Cyril and Methodius, was of course Greek. So they took the Greek as a part of it and added 4 letters to their language.
So Greek
there were
is
some
still,
guttural
Greek
sounds.
is still used in the Greek Orthodox Church.
Yeah.
I have a daughter-in-law that's Russian, and she can kind of read Greek. So
There's a lot of cognitives. But this is the Eastern Christian. This has been pretty much, if you were to walk around from the days of the earliest Christians, there's not much adulteration. This is what was going on. And today there's a school of thought, it's called ancient faith. This is part of the ancient Christian faith. As opposed to nowadays, we have ecumenicals and various offshoots of denominations that have gone in a different fashion. And if you study the Protestant Reformation, you understand why. There was a lot of things that they had objections to. And there's a whole faith tradition of Christianity that went away from this sort of thing. But again, it doesn't matter if you're a Protestant or an Orthodox or a Christian, the same tenets, the same. Jesus is the center of the religion. So, yes, sir. Oh, beloved. Oh, is that because you showed up early today and I singled you out, or what? Oh, the iconoclastic and iconoduals. Yeah, well, the iconoclasts wanted to get rid of all of this stuff, and they did. They succeeded for a long time, for almost 100 years. A lot of this stuff wasn't in the Orthodox Church in some places. They were painted out. Father, you've got some illumination as part of your history on this.
I mean, yeah. To be honest with you, I don't like going back from early church history if there was issues with it. I know what sticks out with Orthodox Church and what we focus more on is that period that I mentioned, the 6th and the 7th, 8th century, where you have the ban of icons by imperial decree. Again, church and state at that time was together, but at points it was not together either. And at one point, so you had the iconoclastic emperor that was against icons. He would oppose, let's say, the patriarch was for icons. He would get rid of them and put in a guy that was on his side. And from that point, as Mr. George said, and they would go through the church, like what you see here, they would wipe off, they would cover over. The only things that it would depict are like a cross. I think that's really about it.
You have to
it's
remember,
also true that Islam prohibits any depictions of a living being. So when the Muslims took over that part of the world, they obliterated all these, if they could. Anything depicting that.
well, if they had taken over a church, yes, they did.
Well, like the Hagia Sophia.
Yeah, well, they had painted over all.
Yeah.
Or taken it apart. We have to remember that politics and religion were hand in glove. Kings, emperors got their mandate from the church. If you were seen to be anti-church, you weren't around long. Got to keep people happy. You don't realize that. Today, politicians, they can do as they feel. There's no connections that much. There's cults of personalities with politicians. Back then, they had to be seen to be aligned. And if you had an autocratic king, a divine right king, you better make sure that you were doing the things that made you supposedly God-given. Because if you didn't, you probably weren't around long. Okay, other things.
Are there, the icons that are depicted in this church, is this, are they typical in most Orthodox
This is Byzantine style, yes. This would probably be seen in most Greek Orthodox and Ethiopian Orthodox. There is a Russian style that's a little different, very different. There is other styles.
But I mean specifically these are
You'd probably see them in most Orthodox. These are the same saints.
okay.
Now, you would see maybe, like for example, we have Saint Olga up there. She's a Russian saint, but that was because one of our parishioners wanted to commemorate their mother, who was named for a Russian saint.
I know when I was doing research for this, a lot of the icons would either be exactly the same, or they'd have just a slight difference where the cross doors would be opened or looked broken off, or the head would be in a different area, less detail on it, but most of them would be almost identical, if not just slight changes.
You're right, Ken. And the icon stands in all Orthodox churches. There's a hierarchy of what has to appear. You just can't pull something out of the blue and just stick it in a place.
That's what
Yes. Is that what you're?
part of
yeah.
my question, yes.
The Virgin Mary is always in the same location. First icon on the right of the priest, to the left is the Jesus, and then you go from there. And usually the second ones are their angels.
How are these preserved?
How are these preserved? Good question. We don't do much art curating. And that's why this is why they're so unique. Most Orthodox churches, there is no real super preservation efforts. This is tough stuff.
Used to have glass for the other ones.
Well, yeah, but most churches, the icons are open for exposure. There is really no art conservation going on.
What's the significance of the architecture for having a dome over the church? Like, is that part of the iconic?
Well, the whole design of the church is, as you kind of sense, it's a cross. So you walk in, it's configured in a cross. The dome is the center, of course, you know, the idea of heaven. Jesus, or the Pantocrator, looking down, standing in judgment, plus also providing inspiration. And when you stand underneath here, and I invite you to come here and stand underneath, you feel very insignificant. I'm sorry, you do. And I've also been to basilicas in the Catholic Church. Huge domes, huge ceilings. I felt this big. Why? Because the idea was that I'm a little person in God's great dominion. So, any other questions? We're happy to take questions afterwards. I want to thank all of you. Please make yourself available for the various programs we have. Now, for students of MCC, you probably want to know how you get credit for coming tonight.